Okay. Hey, hello, everybody, and thank you very much for joining us for another episode of our AI Readiness for Salesforce podcast. Now, today I'm particularly excited because Heather is with us. She doesn't need an introduction, but still, I'll ask you, Heather, if you can. Welcome on the podcast. Can you introduce yourself?
Absolutely, Luca. Thank you for having me today. So I'm Heather Black, CEO and founder of Supermums, and we support people to upskill in Salesforce technology, and we help companies hire amazing talent. So we've been doing that for 8 years, and prior to that, or alongside that, I ran a Salesforce consultancy for 8 years as well. So we've been in the ecosystem a long time, and we're very much helping people upskill in AI right now. It's what we're doing. So it was a great topic, Luca. Thank you for talking about it.
Well, I know you're an expert, and not only you're an expert of the ecosystem, but you're also an expert of change and managing change. And something that we're seeing happening around us is this major wave of change with Agentforce, predominantly in our world with Salesforce, and broadly speaking with AI. So the theme is AI readiness. Which angle of readiness is closer to your heart from an AI readiness perspective?
Oh, definitely workforce development is what I've been talking about, because I think there's different camps that your stakeholders will be sitting in. There'll be ones who are very anti it. There'll be ones who are like, we want to get on board with this now. There'll be ones that are just sleeping and ignoring everything. And so you're going to have people in different camps. And the problem is companies are embracing this and moving at light speeds with it. There's a journey with that, and we can talk about that journey. But it will leave other companies behind if they don't get on board. And I think there's a process that you need to start to go on. So I think it'd be great to explore about, how do you get your workforce on board? What does that even mean? And as you say, it's about how do you bring people on a journey of change, because that is the biggest foundation of actually any technology implementation. As we know, whether you're implementing Salesforce or any other product, it's about bringing people on that journey with you. So let's explore that today.
It's a great theme, and I like the metaphor of the journey, right? Because this is a train that is full steam ahead, right? So we need to get people on board, of course. Just a point of reference is I was just reading about Box, and the CEO, I think he published an open letter on LinkedIn where he said, we are an AI first company. I was reminded by your words, because he is saying it's mandatory. Like when you say companies are embracing this, he was saying, whatever you're asking for budget, whenever you're asking or you're launching a new project, you're asking for hiring, people, resources, I need to see that you've maxed the opportunity that comes with AI that wasn't there last year, that wasn't there, 6 months ago even. So he's kind of forcing his people, his organization down the route, and is impacting, likely, as you say, employees in different ways.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's the thing is, you think big corporate companies might be reacting slow or quicker to some of this, and it's actually the CEOs and founders. If the leadership team is behind it, they're going to be on that train at the front of it. Whereas if you've got those that don't have time to even spend on it or don't have a team steering it, and I think that's what Mark Benioff did, right? He had a team, and that's where we can perhaps start this conversation, is in terms of your first workforce development commitment, it's having a team that's doing the strategy around this. Is looking at what does AI mean for us as a company? Where should we prioritize our efforts with it? Getting a team on board to research the right AI tools that you should be having. Where is it going to make the biggest ROI impact?
Yeah.
And, building that strategy around it, building the business case. That's the first thing that you need to start to do as a business, to just understand what, why, how, and then obviously when behind it. And we can talk obviously about how you bring everybody on that journey beyond that stage. But it's, these companies like Box and Salesforce, have had these strategy teams in place for a while, and they're looking at it from every point of view.
And when you say, from every point of view, does that mean that like a strategy team will span across the entire organization? What's the ideal composition of such a team to drive change?
Yeah, great question. Well, AI is touching every single job role, right? So it's either, it's external, so looking at how your product embraces AI and how you sell your product. So if we look at Salesforce, it's Agentforce. If you look at Box, they're embedding AI in the product that they're giving to customers. So there's that sort of perspective on it. The other is just how people do their jobs on a day-to-day basis. How can AI save the team's time and money? And what solutions could be used to help the sales team exceed their sales targets, because they're using AI such as Vinton to kind of document everything and do log everything better and give them the resources and tips to take the next steps. How can AI support the service team, the customer support team, the sales team, the marketing team, the operations team? But it's, as always with technology projects, you will always do that prioritization. You'll talk to people, you'll do the business analysis, you'll understand what people are doing, you'll understand and do the research on the products that can make the difference to them. And then you'll look at the biggest priorities where it's going to make the biggest shift and present the ROI. So your immediate workforce development needs is that strategy team where they are the BAs, they're doing the research, they're proposing technology solutions, they're coming up with the business case, and they're proposing, right, okay, in terms of AI, these are the things that we go live with first. And part of that, and I know we touched on this before as a part of our initial conversation, to be AI ready, there are some other things that need to come in place. What part of that is data integrity. So as part of that initial team, and once you know what then you're going to focus on, obviously making sure that the data can meet the needs behind those products is fundamental, but it does really depend on what part of the organization and what data we're talking about.
Yeah, data is a key ingredient, right, of AI success. The ingredient that we were talking about earlier is people and how different they react to change in general, yes, and specifically about this particular change. Because if on the one hand, AI is designed to make them more productive, so to help them execute their job more easily, I think there is the underlying threat maybe that it might replace some of the functions across an organization. How have you felt this, kind of working with the companies that you're involved with?
I mean, it's no different to a CRM, right? Because when you go in, people think, oh, a CRM is going to replace some people. You're going to have different emotional, you do a stakeholder analysis and you're going to have these people in different camps. You're going to have those ones that don't like it, those that are going to ignore it, and those that are very excited about it. And so in terms of a change management strategy and how you want to bring people on board, one is make sure there's a very clear business case up front. You've always got to give the reason why. Whenever you're doing any sessions with users, you talk about, why are we doing this? Why are we here? Why is it important to you as individuals, but also important to the company and its, growth and innovation, sustainability? Always start with the why when you're training. The other thing is everybody's really busy in their day jobs, right? Well, whatever the technology you're implementing, it's making time for it. So at Supermums as training providers, whether we go into a company to do training or we're training our end users, our trainees, our mums that come through the program, for example, the reason people come to us is because they want accountability and motivation to learn. And so what a perfect training program looks like is, one, it kicks off with why, but two, you've got a series of training sessions that people need to attend live. They're recorded as videos. You've then got embedded training material that they can watch on replay. They have a place where they can log requests for further support or ideas or anything else on reflection. And you give them that opportunity to get a certification. So if they're learning Salesforce, for example, you might give them some trailhead badges to do, and you create that momentum and excitement, or they get a certification off the back of it, maybe the Agentforce certification or whatever, is the one they're focusing on. And you create this whole momentum where everybody's on board. And that's what companies have wanted where we've gone in and delivered training. They haven't wanted to just give them trailheads, because people don't do them unless it's this whole package of, excitement. We're going to learn this together. We've got a plan. There's a training agenda. Everybody's got to show up. There's recordings. And so you've just got to create this whole experience, and that's what keeps everybody engaged, but also makes them listen. And particularly if you're in any type of compliance environment, you might also need to track if they've watched the session or not within like an LMS environment. So we use Opinium at Supermums, and Opinium allows us to track who's watched things, which allows for completion status. And so if you're in a compliance, you might need to do that as well. And obviously with AI, there are ethics and guardrails around all of this. So if you need to make sure that people have also watched and completed that training around how to use it ethically, that's another place where you probably want to use an LMS system to track completion of certain training modules. And so, you just want to bring everybody on this journey with you, because otherwise it will pass them by. Then you'll get that whole stale of, oh my God, we've invested all this money and we haven't moved on it. So, it's all about all of this. And I think the other reality is you give them some really important statistics. There are some statistics out there which will be evolving all the time, but I know Salesforce have definitely shared some of these, and we can grab them, probably put them in the promo for this video. But the reality is, if our workforce doesn't upskill in some of these AI skills right now, we are going to be left behind and we might be out without a job. So, we are actively training people up in Data Cloud and Agentforce at Supermums who are looking for job opportunities, because we're like, look, you're going to need to learn the latest products and skills that Salesforce is producing. That's going to give you the opportunity to get the jobs, be ahead of the market. It's the same if you're employed internally. When I was at Irish Dreaming the other week, the chap from, I think it was IBM, was on stage, and he was like saying that if I didn't learn these AI skills, I would have been out of my job right now. And that was like a defining statement from him to say that. And that's the reality, is if we don't upskill and start moving towards it, we will get out of date. And we know that from the Salesforce ecosystem. I mean, how far in the last 12 years have we come? How much technology has evolved, how many certifications? We have to keep pace with everything that's changing.
Wow, that's there's a lot to unpack there, but I think the underlying theme is things are moving. That train that we had at the metaphor at the beginning. So we have to come on board. And I think you said it right? So we have executives that I think are ready, and they feel ready, and they need to get their organization, their people ready, and that's why. I think they're organizing, so the responsibility is on them to get organized and provide this opportunity to their company, to their business first, and then to the people to jump on board. And at the same time, I think it's their duty to do so, to help the business, because as you said, if it's not going to be competitive advantage, it will be a competitive disadvantage if they don't do it, because their competitors are doing it, because the rest of the world is moving towards that goal, that new era, that whatever transformational element, and they need to keep up. So I think it's a very interesting point that you're making about kind of training and needing to be on board with AI. What's the blocker, do you think? What is for companies that are not doing it, for people that are not ready to embrace it, apart from obviously the broad fear of change? Do you think that there's other things that are like lingering, and for people that are on the fence, what would you say to them?
Oh, I think the block is, it's always like some people are rabbit in headlights. Where do you start and stop with AI? Right? There's tools in every way, in every area, and I think the thing is to go back to where is your biggest need from a business point of view. Look at your
back
business.
To the why, as you said.
Go
earlier.
Back to the why, because it's the same with Salesforce. I mean, I liken it to that because I think we're in that space. So if you were looking at whether I implement Salesforce for the sales team or the marketing team or the customer support team, you look at where is the fire, right? Where is our biggest risk? Where is our biggest need? What are our competitors doing, and where are we needing to really focus efforts? And I think the thing is AI is used as an umbrella term for like thousands of products that are out there right now, and thousands of tools. And the thing is, you've got to zone back into going, right, what is our product doing now? Well, in terms of, your operational teams and everything else, that's a business need. I think in terms of understanding where your competitors are going and how you can enhance your product that you're selling to customers, that needs another level of market analysis. That's a different business case to innovate your product. to, how do we innovate how our sales team operate or our customer support team operate? But it is going back to, you will only do this if there's a pain point right now. Now, the problem is with competitor analysis and customer market proposition is that, you don't know what you don't know until your competitors just launch something new and you're like, oh my God, we're like well behind this, the curve, because they've just spent the last year doing it. So you don't necessarily want to sit on the fence in terms of what, your product and service that you're giving to customers. Like, I think it's certainly worth researching that anyway. Internally, it's going to be where your biggest pain points are. Where is it that you really need to steer the ship to achieve better deliverables? So I think, just go back to your business pain point, really. Otherwise, you're just going to be, just wondering which path to go down, and you won't go anywhere. You'll just sit on the bench.
Yeah, no, absolutely. In your experience, I know you work with many different companies across, many different industries. What are there industries that are embracing this faster, that are kind of jumping to, AI and into the new world faster than others? What's your experience there?
Yeah, from my conversations with people in the Salesforce space, it's definitely been the retail and travel industries that are definitely adopting sales like products like Agentforce quicker. For the rest of the products, I can't say, but certainly from a Salesforce point of view, that's where they're seeing biggest take up.
So there is an element of B2C then, volume, I guess, the drive, because broadly speaking in Salesforce, there are, two major camps, right? So B2B companies making up a lot of the larger enterprise, and then B2C companies that are working with high volumes, right? So a retail company, like you mentioned, or a travel company will have hundreds of thousands of interactions with customers a day. And maybe that's probably why there's an embracing AI seems to be, or Agentforce seems to be a bit more obvious for them, I guess. It's an efficiency play. Do you think it's only efficiency play? Is there like a quality of service element to it? Is there, what's the key value, do you think, ultimately for AI? Because today we see time saving predominantly, right? So that's the efficiency play. What's coming is, and I'm just speculating, right? I don't know. I don't have to.
Yeah, I mean, it's amazing how it's evolved, isn't it? I mean, one of my mentors has got this amazing AI tool that they're launching, and it's like me talking to you. It's a real person just talking, but it's not a real person. It's an AI person talking. And you're like, wow, it's giving HR advice and guidance, and pulling information out of the data it's got behind it, right? And you think, gosh, okay, and this is saving and supporting the HR team. I think efficiency, but also for this example, like supporting HR teams or supporting employees, it's helping the employee find information quicker, right, for them, rather than perhaps waiting to speak to somebody. So arguably it's improving customer service, satisfaction. Obviously the power of that is making sure that the right data is in there to give them the right answer, because you can't afford for that to be wrong. But it's so intuitive, and obviously if all the right coding and intelligence is in the back end, then it will produce that for them. So I think the reality is you could get happier customers, happier employees if they've got access to information quicker, more timely, than having to wait on a person necessarily. And it means also that employees can be happier because they're not necessarily doing admin tasks, and they could be freed up to do other things. So I know that certainly with Salesforce, they said they've deployed more staff from doing some tasks to other tasks. And so it's not necessarily about losing your job. It's more about, well, actually, where could their time be better spent than doing that task before? So I think there's a real opportunity that it lifts the business in different ways, and supports it, not just to save time and money, but to actually advance its performance and the satisfaction of people.
Yeah, which, to what you were saying earlier, goes back to why, right? So the very reason that drives embracing AI ultimately is never about just saving time. It's about delivering a better service, product, quality.
Has to, right? It has to, or else it's not going to work.
Yeah, it's not worth it. Yeah. It's not worth the effort, of course. I'm curious to look into the future And so if we have, this same conversation in a year time, I mean, it's not a long time in the future, but with the changes that are happening, it's probably going to be massively, changed and different in a year already. What do you think we will be discussing in a year time? Like more of the same, more companies have embraced it, new ways that we cannot think of, so we cannot even discuss today. What's
Great question. I love how you throw these at me. I think we are going to be sharing which tools we're using that are really working for as well. Like at the moment, I feel like we're all piloting things, and obviously there is definitely shared learning. There's a lot of different tools out there, and we're getting a lot of shared learning. And so I think it will be more showing like which of the AI tools we're most using and what's actually made the biggest difference. Like we're talking about the customer success stories in a year, right? We're talking about our own success stories. We're talking about other people's success stories. Certainly like Agentforce, for example, again, just talking the Salesforce space because it's more relevant to where we are right now. But, they're on the journey of, they've got some initial success stories. They're still, fine tuning that product, still getting it out there. In a year's time, we're going to be celebrating, a lot more case studies that give then, I suppose, that first wave of people that are going, right, well, we'll go now because, oh gosh, they're the front leaders, right? Like Box or
pioneers,
the pioneers. And then, then you're going to get success stories, which is then going to just get that second wave going because I'm going to sit and wait. I'm going to sit and wait and see what happens, and how people get on, what their learning's been, because actually on the second wave, all those pain points have been ironed out and actually might be cheaper implementation in some ways because, a lot of that has already been learnt. People have got those skills. So it depends on where your product is. Again, it goes back to the business need. Like, do you need to be first wave or is second wave okay? Or it depends on, all of those different variables. But yeah, I think that's where we're going to be in a year's time. And it's the second wave that will trigger after that.
And I like it. And I believe the companies that you're working with and training right now, they're probably gearing up for that second wave, right? Because you need to build the skills today, first with your team, your mentality, your culture, your approach to this change, and then building the skills, the knowledge, so that people have the tool to drive or embrace this change when it comes. I think the pioneers, as we call them, we know a few, right? So we've seen them on some stages at events, and I believe we look at them and we say, wow, that's, takes some courage to embrace, and probably they fell short in a few areas, or they discovered things for the benefit of everybody else, I guess. And hopefully, as you said, we will be benefiting from it as the second wave kicks in. That makes sense. Parting thoughts. So things that really, really excite you that are happening right now, if any?
Things that really excite me. Yes. I think, I just love talking to people in the ecosystem and networking at the moment. I've been to some amazing Salesforce events, talking to people about, these projects that they're doing, the changes that are coming along, talking about training and opportunities. And I think it's just about being in the marketplace. If you're in a business, don't stick your head down and just crack on with your own thing in your own space. I think, seeing what's happening around you, learning from that, leaning in is key. And so I've really enjoyed, traveling to different Salesforce events, being in different speaker sessions, networking, and when at Supermums, we're very much focused on helping businesses get those workforce teams into place, either whether strategy teams or upskilling the second stage, teams to roll it out. It's really exciting to be at this forefront of the change.
That absolutely makes sense. So there's a lot of excitement, as a matter of fact, out there. So, I think it's a great advice, just get out more, talk to people, embrace change with their energy, if, is not necessarily your energy. And, we'll hopefully be here in a year time talking about even more innovation and looking back, and we say, we didn't know anything last year. And now, look around, how much has changed.
Yeah, absolutely.
Fantastic. Thank you. Well, thank you very much, Heather. This was a great conversation. Thank you for sharing all your, a very little portion of your knowledge, but your thoughts with me and whoever has been logging in for this episode. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Luca.
Bye-bye.